Welcome, everyone, to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner.
And I'm Sal. How's it going, everybody?
Sal is here, too. The Salad Czar, the Sal Capone.
That's it.
We keep coming up with different ways to say
I think that's going to be the challenge out there. Let's see who can come up with the best one.
You know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't we have people from the comments let us know what you think he should be called?
Yeah. Sal Capone's pretty funny. I like that one.
Well, you like that one because it sounds bad, but I don't know if I do.
Or Salrician.
Salrician sounds really cool, but, you know, I don't know.
That one's kind of worn. It's kind of outlived its shelf life. Is that it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, I just kept it going because there was somebody that complained about it. So, hey, we read your comments, folks. Believe me, we read your comments.
Yeah, we do.
They get brought to my attention. They're like, hey, this guy's talking mess. I'm like, oh, well. I don't usually get into I don't talk crap.
The banter back and forth with the video.
I have a lot of little people that'll do it for me. They'll get in there and defend me. I've noticed that. But let's plug the email real quick. DasWolfman88@gmail.com. DasWolfman88@gmail.com and wolfandsal@gmail.com.
That's it. Definitely.
That is it. And speaking of comments.
Yeah, well, hey, let's cover that a little bit.
Yeah, because Tony put together a list of comments. We have not done this. We have not.
This is something new.
Long overdue.
Yeah, something new and long overdue.
Long overdue. We'll go back to episode 1.
Yeah, we had
Susie Ford. Susie Ford has been somebody who's always been there in our corner. She's always talking good, you know. And the first comment on there was, "Yay, so excited! Great first episode, guys." Susie, I will tell you this: you're being so generous because that first episode sucked.
The
sound was terrible.
We were flying by the seat of our pants.
We were trying to figure out. The interesting was the Goatman stories, and then your Bigfoot stuff.
Yeah,
but the sound was not right, and it took us forever to do it. You know,
yeah. But definitely, it's a work in progress, and it still is.
Yeah, and it was nice of her to give us that.
Yeah. You were awfully kind.
She always has nice things to say. And so, Susie, God bless you. I think you're a friend of mine on Facebook, too. I know you are. And so, yeah. And then the other guy, David Pratt, been friends with that guy for a long time. I thought your first episode was great, but I'm loving your other episodes. They get better and better as you guys get into your groove. P.S. Get rid of Sal. I'm just kidding. He didn't say that.
Thank you for the compliments.
He didn't say that. He said, and then the other one was Angel Ward. Excellent. Let's see. Excited to know you aren't limited by one specific genre. I've always been into the paranormal and of course, cryptids. There's just too much ignored by the mainstream. That needs to get out. Thanks. And that was the first episode. We just picked 3
Great
out of
comments.
there. Is that what you picked? You did 3, Tony?
Awesome. Yeah.
And then this is the second episode.
Hey, before we get started, let's just let people know we're not saying they're the best ones. These are the ones that Tony picked. There's a lot of great comments out there. I'm sorry we can't get to all of them.
There'll be others to come.
Yes.
But Tony he picked those. So if you got passed over or whatever, then do something to him. Beat him up. You know what you could do, folks, to really punish this kid? To really punish him? Come here and steal his video game controllers.
Oh. That's like jabbing.
He might have to commit harikara if you do that.
It's like jabbing needles in his eyes. It's horrible.
Tony's not even smiling. He's just like looking at us with a grimace of anger.
It says, "Don't touch.
Don't peel your skin." He's tearing at his skin now. He's so mad.
He's shedding. He's actually a hybrid. He's a reptilian hybrid.
His scales are coming off. He's so mad right now.
Awesome.
Okay.
So back to the comments. Hey, what do we got? Second episode.
Yeah, James Phoenix says you are creating a very interesting channel through your attention to detail and open minds to the subject matter. That is what separates this program from many others on a roll, guys. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you.
Dropping while says Z's dropping while I'm at work. Lucky's at home now. Who's going to hold my hand now? I'll soldier on alone in my office.
Okay. And who is this person?
His name is James Phoenix.
Hey, James, guess what? There's plenty of those episodes out there. You listen in and have fun with it. We'll be right there with you while you're doing what you got to do.
This guy is Pornographic 3. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall seeing these 2 big dudes with swords and bats walking through a haunted house. He's talking about me and Willie me and Taz when we had that was episode 2. That was about the haunted house. And then episode 3 says Randy Stone 3, Wolf and Sal. I think you guys just raised the bar on the creepometer with the weapons of a wolf with the mind of a human. Truly scary. Peace. Thank you so much. And then it says here, I can't even, Lorray Weatherman. It says, sounds like the house you lived in was way more than haunted. You were lucky to have gotten away intact, mind, body, and soul. Absolutely. I agree with that. That is crazy because people have asked me before, like when we were doing the investigation when we had Anna Coates come on or whatever. When she came on and talked about, I made a comment and somebody asked me about it. One of the comments I said, how could they stay living in that house? Well, then somebody asked me, they were like, well, you did it. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't know the history of that house. Okay. And I didn't know that there were 50 bodies that had been scattered about the property and that they had been murdered there in the pool area and all that. I didn't know anything about it. So,
yes, definitely.
Yeah. And I made a point not to research it until I left. Okay. So yeah. And it wasn't, a killing ground for bunches of people. Okay.
Or actually a dumping ground as well,
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't. So how can you live there knowing that all that happened there? That's just.
They chose to be there willingly. That's yeah.
I can't even imagine that. I mean, it's a big old house and whatever, but because 11,000 square, that's humongous mansion.
Oh my God, yeah.
But how can you be comfortable anywhere in that house knowing that all those people were
knowing the truth behind it all?
There.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, that's really interesting,
But anyway, those are comments from the first 3 episodes. Like I said, we're behind, so we're gonna have to just catch up.
We're gonna keep putting it out there. Hopefully, we'll catch up with the episodes we got out there, and so just be patient with us, folks. And we want to let you know that we enjoy talking to you guys.
Yeah, we're only 2 people, me and Sal, with our pack of slaves. That's it. It's us 2 and then our slaves. And you know how slaves are. They get all out of hand and they don't want to do what they're told. You gotta, beat on them or whatever, make them act right. But yeah. Anyways, thank you, Tony, for putting that together. You will have 1 hour of TV time tonight as a reward. No video games.
I think it's awesome.
I'm just messing with you. I'm not going to hide your controllers.
Hey.
Anyways,
we put this together. That's it's good stuff.
We have today. Our show. We have a show we're going to do.
Just another potluck.
Yeah, it's a potluck.
Mm-hmm.
Last time was lizard potluck, which is weird, but it was all lizards and reptiles and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. And so we talked about everything from
big lizards, little lizards, all kinds of stuff. That's one of our, that's.
Yeah.
But it's, like we said, it has a thread. There's a thread. Usually there's a thread, folks. That's what we
talked about the rake too.
Yeah, and again, we did state that. What is it? Is it lizard? Is it something else? What is it? We still speculate on that every day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody has a better, for lack of better words, a better classification for this rake, is it mammalian? Is it reptilian? Who knows? But
yeah, who knows?
Hey, share your thoughts.
Alien.
Share, put it in the comment section.
They say that the octopi,
mm-hmm.
the octopus are actually squids, octopus, the arthrocephalopods, the cephalopods.
Yes,
cephalopods are actually they think that they're from another planet. They're from somewhere else. They're from outer space because their DNA is so different than everyone else's.
There was a creature maybe potentially dropped on this planet when it was terraformed.
Maybe brought here in an egg form.
That could very well be the truth. I mean, it's
maybe the rake is part octopi, except it has 4 legs, sort of.
That could very well be.
To me, just the way it moves and the description, and everything makes me think artificially created. Yes. Lab or something. I don't know, man. I just don't know.
Well, I mean, you can look at the human body itself, human being. I mean, we just, a lot of times, if you stop and analyze us, we don't fit. We just don't fit into the natural scheme of things that goes on in this world. So a lot of questions out there. But anyways, let's with that, let's just start the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just start the show.
So where do you want to begin?
God, so many questions. So many so many stories, so little time. I've always been curious about people who experience missing time, legitimate missing time.
Yeah.
And I know you got a story, comes out of Michigan.
Yeah. And this guy, I'll call him Rory.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just call him that. Rory told me an interesting story. He was hunting in Michigan with his best friend. They were kids.
Mm.
Now, I know you're thinking, what are kids doing out hunting, whatever, but my brother lived in Michigan for a long time, and he would roam around the woods,
Yeah,
shooting guns, whatever. And I know that
yeah, Michigan isn't all Detroit or anything like
there's
that.
a lot of rural. Me and my
tons
friend
of it.
Keith Bell, we used to go out when we were kids and run around shooting guns and whatever. I recently, when we were children, we were hunting, whatever, and recently got the opportunity to take my nephew up to Fort Worth to shoot with him or whatever, and he taught him a lot about gun safety and things like that, and yeah. But these kids were running around out in the woods and did something kind of silly. They were out in the woods and they were looking for squirrels. Whatever.
This is the guy Rory you're talking about.
Yeah, Rory. And so they did something kind of silly.
Mm-hmm.
They saw this weird looking creature, entity, whatever, wearing what looked like a gray full bodied suit. The head of the creature was black. It was completely black. And the eyes had a bluish white glow to them. Looking almost like it was wearing a helmet or a mask, but the shape of it and everything kind of reminded me of the Greys.
The way he described it to you?
Yeah, like maybe it was wearing a mask or something.
Correct.
But it was walking around out in the woods, and it was at a distance, and they saw it, and I guess it didn't see them. So they took a shot at it, which was a 13 and a 15-year-old.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah. And so when you're that age and you're out running around in the rural, I think this was in the Upper Peninsula. And when you're out in that age and you're running around the woods doing whatever you're doing with guns, it's not safe for kids to be running around with guns. I know I did it when I was a kid. But looking back on it, I would think that you really need to lock your guns up when it comes to children, because
if they're not properly trained
with supervision, I just believe, and I'm not going to get into a gun debate one way or the other. There's so much of that all the time in this country, but these kids were doing what they did, and I'm not passing judgment one way or the other. But I know at my age, when I was a kid, I was doing it too, and I wouldn't have taken a shot at a humanoid-looking creature wearing, a suit. But they did, and the next thing they remember is they were waking up in the middle of the night, and they were having to stagger their way home, feeling like they had been intoxicated.
Really?
Yeah. So what do you make of that? They shot at something on their way home. The older kid became violently ill and began to throw up this weird gelatinous substance. It was orangey looking.
Really?
The other kid got very sick. After the next day, he woke up feeling like they both had the flu.
Mm-hmm.
Very sick, and the parents were like, "Where were you?" It was early in the day when they were doing what they were doing, like before noon.
Right.
And when they got home, it was like 11 o'clock at night.
Holy
So you're talking
geez.
probably 12 hours, I'm estimating.
So they lost all that time.
Yeah, and they took a shot at something that they don't know to this day what it was. Tall, slender, wearing a silverish gray suit with a black head, and the hands were black. But the way that it was described to me by Rory, he said that it looked like it might have been like gloves and a helmet.
I wouldn't doubt it.
With the eyes were kind of illuminated with like some sort of light coming within the helmet.
Right.
Spaceman. I mean, I don't know what to call it. I mean,
well, it was. I'm trying to remember a particular encounter I'd heard, and off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you which or where I came across it. But the fact was that it was in the general area of up there around Wisconsin, Michigan, all that, up near the Great Lakes in the Upper Peninsula, or close to the Upper Peninsula area, that a gentleman had some property, and that they had come across some type of shape-shifting type creature out there. So, but key thing is it resembled the shape and size that you just described about this particular black dark creature with the silver suit.
Yeah, and what's weird is like over the next 3 or 4 days they were both sick.
Oh,
And it was on winter vacation. I believe they said that it was like in the wintertime.
sounds like some classic, a classic abduction scenario after.
I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Summer vacation.
Summer vacation,
Yeah,
yes.
I don't know why I said winter.
Well, winter it'd be cold. They'd be up to their knees in snow.
Well, I don't know. Snow's a lot up there, but I know. Well, even in the snow, I know my brother said that when he was, my half brother, when he was running around up there doing whatever, that he would go out in the snow all the time.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, this was summer vacation. But anyway, they slept for 3 or 4 days, both of them, and then later on when they talked about it, the younger kid, who was Rory, he claimed that he saw a greenish blue ball of light in the sky hovering near his house.
Oh.
Was on the edge of town. It was backed into a bunch of woods. And there was a trail that went from his house to the other kid's house. And the other kid never wanted to talk about it. But as they got older, because they're about my age, as they got older, they did begin to remember more things.
No, did they?
Yeah, and Rory doesn't remember as much as his friend. His friend, I'll call him Jake, starts with a J. But anyways, Jake, his friend, just did not really like to talk about it, but began to experience nightmares and things when he was in his 30s, and it started to come back.
Oh.
Now, what he has told Rory and what they have figured out was that they shot at this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And after they did, this thing turned and walked toward them, holding up its hand, according to Jake, and like pretty much disabled them.
Basically
they
immobilized
became
them?
immobilized, paralyzed,
Wow.
with something that was attached to its hand. At that point, 3 more of these entities came from another part of the woods and laid them down on these slabs that were kind of hovering off the ground.
Yes.
A craft. They walked them to a craft. They took them up into the atmosphere or whatever, where they saw Earth. But Earth wasn't like, now what he said was they were on a spot of the planet where you could see like the planet at like an angle, like it was flat, like an angle.
Oh, interesting.
Where that's how close they were. They didn't go out into the atmosphere to where they saw the Earth as a round, whatever. Now, people are going to say, "Oh, it's a flat Earth." I'm not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that's the angle that they were at. They could see like the state of Michigan. They were high up enough to see it, but they weren't far enough back to see it.
They were not out past the stratosphere.
No, they weren't out into outer space.
Correct.
Let's put it that way. But he said that they remembered that they saw that. Now he remembers that part. He just remembers waking up at that part, and they were dressed in like, this is gonna sound silly, pajamas.
Pajamas.
Well,
or
not like,
or is it like the
not
ones
like
at the
with
hospital?
Transformers on them and stuff? Pajamas, GI Joe, dude. I'm saying like they had like this,
like a hospital gown.
Yeah, like I don't know. Really, I didn't really ask.
Okay.
I'll speculate and say like a kimono type thing. I don't freaking know.
Right.
But me saying that, I shouldn't even say that because I don't know. I didn't ask. He just said that they were wearing these weird like pajamas, these comfortable clothing. He said they were comfortable.
Oh, okay.
And that they were looking out of a window and they could see like Michigan. They could see down in, and they were talked to by these entities through a communicator in the wall. And it was like they could see them, but they couldn't see out, kind of like a two-way glass.
Yes.
And they were asked several questions. Now, this is what his friend told him. He says he doesn't remember. They remembers getting sleepy and going back to sleep because there was some sort of gas or something that came through the ventilation.
Yes.
And his friend answered some questions and went to sleep, but he says he don't remember answering the question. Remember talking, but then going to sleep. And then waking back up on the slab and then being dropped off. But that was stuff that came to him later. But then he also, now here's the thing I think, what I'm wondering about is if his friend wasn't telling him these things, and then maybe he's like, yeah, I remember that. And I'm not saying you're lying, Rory. I'm not, but don't, because if you're listening, yeah, I'm just saying, and I already told you this, I'm talking to him, it's like it could have been the power of suggestion. He was adamant that that was not the case. Now, I've wondered that with my own self before. You know, when somebody starts recounting events and you're like, yeah, I remember that. And then you're thinking, do I remember that? Or was that just put in my mind?
Right.
Because the mind is a tricky thing and you got weird, but you know, sometimes people are very adamant. He was very adamant.
Right.
And so when we were going back and forth, he was like, look, this is what happened to me. I don't know. I mean, you can take it for what it is. There was this weird like mist that came through the vent or whatever. They went back to sleep, and then they really did not see these entities' faces other than the black. Just there was no mouth and no nose. It was just the eyes and this black.
Well, there are stories.
So I think it's like a helmet. That's what I think, and
yeah.
I think that they shot at one who was doing who knows what. So they decided to just tag him. You know, I mean, possibly. You know,
possibly.
And according to his friend, the friend has been revisited.
Oh, by these entities?
Again, by these supposed entities that they came back and talked to him 2 or 3 more times. Not with him, though. And they said that they actually pretty much didn't really have much use for the younger guy, for Rory. But Jake, they did for whatever reason, which is kind of weird because, I mean, if it was a chance encounter that they shot at him, or maybe they were already flanking them and planning on abducting them because Jake had something special that Rory doesn't. I don't know.
That's a good question.
We could speculate all day. All I know is what the story is, what he gave me, and it was very.
You know, one thing I've always found interesting in cases like this, because it sounds like a classic abduction case. However, the part that gets me to wondering is they had this mask on or helmet on, whatever, that hides their face. And there is, or there are stories, accounts, to use the proper terminology, there are accounts that there are even those within, you know, the black, you know, the dark, deep state, whatever you want to call it, the Men in Black organization, that they have the technology and they do the same thing a lot of times when they want to maybe catch someone, silence someone, et cetera, that they use that same technology to abduct someone, and then of course drugs and everything else to clear to wipe their mind.
Well, going a little further into this case, Jake from State Farm. No, I'm just kidding. Jake actually,
well, yeah,
Jake actually, one of the things that yeah. So he ended up like telling him later on that he had 2 or 3 more encounters.
Oh, okay.
But never did give him much detail.
He just basically told him he's been having revisits.
Was in contact with him, yes.
Wow.
One of the cases was one of the things that he did say, though, that one night he was just sitting in his living room very hungry, and they brought him Chick-fil-A. I thought that was nice of them.
Those very nice aliens.
That is. Yeah, you shot at them, and then they feed you. No, I'm just kidding, folks. That's not even funny. I'm just joking. Seriously, it is funny, but it's not.
It's not something.
I'm not making fun of the story. I'm just saying because even Rory does not know if this guy was being on the up and up with him about it.
About the recurring visits.
For whatever reason, they really didn't stay friends, but they lived in the same general area for a long time.
Yeah, so they were acquaintances, but never really.
They kind of went their separate ways.
Yeah.
And something happened to them that day that just made them not really talk much anymore. And he said that it was a distancing that kind of came from his friend.
Well, I think his friend was dealing with the fact that he's seeing these weird creatures. Not, you know, apart from having shot at one, and the next thing you know, they don't know what happened to him, and they're waking up in the middle of the night after being laid out on the ground all day, obviously. So they thought probably initially. So,
well, I asked him if his friend did his friend ever actually get a chance to see what if that was their face, just the black,
correct,
you know, whatever with the eyes, or was that a mask? And according to what Rory said, he says he thinks it was like a mask, but you know, the shape of the head and everything. He says he gets really weird, creepy feelings whenever he sees anything with the grays.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably what it was.
Could very well.
I mean, and so that they were talking, and his friend never did give much detail about what went on. They just kind of went over that night, and his friend had more, you know, to say about
recurring,
it. Yeah, and that they implanted something in his wrist.
Interesting.
According to Jake, that guy. I don't know.
That's those are those questions and parts of the story, the details of the story that, unfortunately, you're not going to really be able to prove unless the guy has gone and had that, had his wrist examined, see if he's got any foreign objects in there.
Yeah, and Rory's a very blue collar guy. Doesn't, has not really, he just that was a weird thing that happened to him, and he just kind of looks at it like that was that.
Chalk it up to something weird, right?
I guess moving on, there's only so much you can do, when
Yeah, in those instances, I mean, because think about it. Extraterrestrial or interdimensional aliens, they've got the technology. So what are you going to do? How can you investigate, find out who they are, what they are with inferior technology to theirs?
I'll tell you this.
A lot easier with that technology.
Yeah.
Don't
shoot at them. That might be a better, just the moral to the story is, Bebe's kids shot at some aliens and got in trouble.
Yeah.
So maybe
they got abducted, sedated, and who knows what else.
Who knows? I mean, don't do it. Don't shoot at them. If you see aliens, kids, and you're out in the woods with guns you shouldn't be running around playing with in the first place, don't shoot at aliens.
That's definitely something I would back you up on that. But I can only imagine how odd that sighting was to them to begin with. Seeing this weird dark creature or dark-skinned creature is what it looked like.
And no description on the craft either, other than the room that they were in, and then the questions he was asked, which he didn't really remember all the questions. One of them, the only question that I remember him that I read that was that they asked him, "What were you doing in the woods? And did you see what?" Did they ask him, "What did you see of our vessel? What did you see of us?" Questions, I guess, that they needed to know. Yeah. I don't know, and then decide.
They got to figure out what they're going to.
Whether they're just going to shoot you out the
or erase your mind completely.
They're going to just out the poop chute, and you're just they're going to go pummel it. What is it? Just falling to the earth.
Yes. And if you're burning in, you're going to burn up before you hit the ground.
Oh my gosh! You're just like, what is the word? Starts with a P. Not pummel. Whatever. You just go plummeting to the earth, and then that's it. Yeah, can't even think of the word. Anyways, moving on. We're going to jump around here.
Yeah. Now I have a question. Since we're on the little, since we're talking about citing odd stuff, what about the Black Panther sighting in Beaumont, Texas? You said you had a really interesting one. Tell me about that one.
That one is pretty interesting. Beaumont is in the east. No,
near the
Beaumont
big thicket.
is absolutely big thicket territory.
Mm-hmm.
Beaumont is 50 miles from Houston? Is it 50 miles?
Oh, that's a good question, but it is to the east. Yeah, I would say roughly about 50.
I'd say
50 miles southeast of Houston.
Yeah, it's east of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I ask you because you lived west of Houston.
Oh, actually, northwest
of
area.
Houston. Yeah, you were Tomball.
Mm-hmm. Near
you
that
did.
Tomball.
Yeah,
yes.
Tomball. And you actually lived close to my mom.
Yes, I did at one time.
And my brother, my sister, and my brother-in-law, they lived Pinehurst.
Okay.
There's a lot of woods out there.
Yeah,
a lot of woods.
Thick.
There's actually a Dogman story to Woodlands we'll talk about at some point. But anyways, this is a Black Panther sighting. Now, what it was a couple different Black Panther sightings. That area of Beaumont, I have heard for years. From there to Port Arthur, they call it Port Arthur.
Port Arthur.
Yeah, Arthur. Yeah, it's a French, but it's Port Arthur.
Yes.
Now, they have in that corridor. There have been a lot of black cat sightings. Some of them are strange. Now, one of them I got from a guy who went to a little beer joint over there in Beaumont, out on the edge of town, and he was going back out to his truck or whatever,
mm-hmm.
or he was driving back home in his truck, and he sees this, what he thinks is a person wearing all black, just dressed all in black, in a very sleek outfit.
Mm-hmm.
But as he gets closer, it drops down on all fours and then leaps out across the road in front of his little. And he said he had a little one of those little small S10 trucks.
Yes,
and that he said that it was probably as big as his truck.
Oh,
once he realized, once it was all on all fours from nose to tail, it was a Black Panther. Now the weird thing about it was that it was standing on two legs on the side of the road. Said that it looked right at him. The headlights illuminated. It had yellow eyes, and it gave him a nasty look. Now, when I asked him what you mean by a nasty look, he said it looked menacing, very, very angry and
Like it was
aggressive. Like it was,
perturbed that it
and
showed.
he got the feeling it was mad that he saw it and saw it on two legs.
Oh,
That's just like immediately went into his mind. Now he went home, which wasn't but about a mile and a half from the spot where he saw it, out in the rural area he lived. And he said that about 2 days later, he comes outside to smoke a cigarette and he hears something moving around in the back of his truck. So he freaks out. He goes and grabs a flashlight. He comes back out and he sees this black hand, around the back of his taillights, like it wrapped around the back of his truck. He could see
correct. A black hand.
a black hand. And so he says he walks around the side of the truck this is creepy, around the side of the truck with a flashlight. And he sees this thing hunched down behind the truck.
Okay, wait a minute. You got to describe hunched down like
it was hunched down like he could see the legs up like a person.
that would.
Now I
hunch down
talked to
behind
this guy and he said that it was like squatted down like a person and it looked over to him in the left. What it was doing behind his truck, he had no idea. But it was the black panther looking thing
Really?
that he had seen, yeah. So he freaks out, drops the flashlight, and runs back inside, and doesn't see it again that night. And he said that he was up all night looking out the window. His wife, I guess, works graveyards, and she wasn't home, so he was out there by himself. And so he was just freaking out, and this thing was out there somewhere. Nothing else happened that night. And he said that this happened back when he was a young man. He's like in his 50s now. This actually happened when he was in his 20s, in his early 20s, and he was a young man, and they were living out in the middle of nowhere. And so he said that, the next day he goes out, sees these big paw prints, cat prints, and he was very adamant that it was a bipedal black panther-like creature. And he said it wasn't dog-like, he wasn't wolf-like. He's like, I've heard of dog man and all that. He goes, this was a panther, a black panther. And he was very adamant about that, and it walked around on two legs. And he saw it again, another time he saw it. Now, this time he said he was going out to his truck, and it was broad daylight, and he saw it by the fence line. There was like a barbed wire fence, like whatever, and he said he saw it on the other side of that barbed wire fence. He saw this big tail. He said they had this really, really long tail.
Oh, wow.
And that it stood straight up like a man, had a chest like a man, built with the shoulders and everything. The hands looked like claws, and he said it was black as midnight, and it looked right at him. And he said it was just like if you took a man, and the way he worded it was bent him into a cat. Now, I guess what he's saying is, if you take a man and a cat and you mix them together,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that's what it looked like. And he said that it was just standing there, and he said that it kind of grinned at him. So then he told his wife, he's like, I think we need to move. The house belonged to his, which would become his father-in-law.
Right.
And
it was the girlfriend or wife, or later wife. Obviously, it was the family home.
Family, yeah. And here's the weird thing. Now I'm going to get into the weird part that he told me. The guy that was his father-in-law,
right,
did not like him.
Okay.
They were like mortal enemies.
Oh, okay.
Did not want his daughter marrying him.
Correct.
Apparently that family, he was from Louisiana, but the family was East Texas family, been there for a long time. He was Cajun, and the father-in-law didn't like him, didn't want him marrying, wanted her to marry another guy.
Right.
And he believes that they did something to conjure this
little bit of hoodoo.
Yeah. He says he don't know what was going on. It was very weird. But once they moved out of that house and moved into town, then he never saw it again. Nothing else happened. But this wasn't the only thing that happened. The most gruesome thing that happened, and I'll say this for the last, was the last straw, I guess you could say, was the one of the dogs that had disappeared. They had an outside dog and an inside dog. Country folks will do that. They'll have like a couple big mean dogs outside, and they'll have a little whatever inside.
Noise box on the inside.
On the inside, yeah. and then they'll have like a couple cats, because if you're out in the country, folks, you got to have some cats to get rid of the vermin and the snakes and the rats,
yes,
whatever.
Yes, sir.
So anyway, outside dog goes missing. Before the first sighting of this thing.
Oh, interesting.
The dog had gone missing. The cats were freaking out. They didn't want to ever go outside. They wanted to stay inside. They usually would purr and want to go out and whatever.
Right.
And so one day he opens the door to let one of the cats out because I had to use the restroom, and he hears, and right there in front of the house by the driveway is this black panther that had just leapt out of the bushes and snatched the cat up and pretty much bit it in two and was gone.
Wow.
So that was it for him. He was like, we're done. So next morning they just left, and then at the wedding, apparently the dad, the father-in-law, whatever, went up to him and not confessed, but told him, he's like, there's a lot of other things we can do to you, boy.
He said it just like that?
Kind of insinuating that whatever was happening was already.
We already know what we kind of like by saying
short
what
of
he's saying.
Killing him with whatever this entity was.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that it looked like a flesh and blood entity. They saw it as a flesh and blood entity, but it could have been
conjured
spirit.
Mm-hmm. But also, you have. Well, first of all, I've been getting the thread right off the bat. Cat person. You had that guy, Taylor.
Yep.
What he saw on driving down the road,
which is a long ways from Beaumont, but still,
right,
it's the same thing.
Which could bring a new angle into the whole the big black cat sightings across the state and everywhere. And of course, this throws an element of supernatural into it. Is shape-shifting. Could there be shapeshifters who shape-shift into these creatures?
That's right. One of the things I asked the guy too, though, I was like, do you think maybe that thing was just in that area and he moved you to that property? Because the wife never saw it.
Maybe his father-in-law knew about this thing
and stuck him out there because there were two other properties, but the wife never saw it. Never, and even had a hard time believing him when he was telling her, that this was going on at night, because it would be at night when she was at work.
Right. Well, yeah,
that's weird. I mean, I don't know.
It is. It's strange. But I will say this, the whole Black Panther sighting phenomena, most people that have one, and I have some close relatives that have seen one. But to them, what they saw was very much a feline, just something to the equivalent of a mountain lion that's solid black. That's how they described it, solid black, but bigger. And it was out in front of them like you would run, like if you're driving down one of these rural Texas roads and you see, some wild hogs go across the road or some deer. He goes, that's how it was explained to me, that they saw it out there and it had a deer in its mouth and then just kept moving on into the wood line afterwards.
It's weird too, because the way these things can leap, the way they can climb, the way they move can give the impression of them being on two legs at times. I wondered about that, and I asked, not going to say his name, friend of mine, the one that I had talked to.
Yes.
I asked him, about that. Maybe, I was like, do you think maybe when it climbed the fence? He goes, no. He's like, you could see its back. It looked like a person, like with
it was standing up.
Yeah, it was a cat. He goes, a cat person. He's like, I know what a panther looks like, and I've seen pictures, he goes, this was no ordinary black cat, Now near Hoxie, out near Taylor, there have been lots of reports of these black cats, but like I've heard before, I mean, people know the difference between a cougar, a black cat, and a cat-like person that's walking around on two legs. I mean, they're country people, but they're not ignorant, man.
That's
and I know those people, in person, I've never met this guy that told me the story in Beaumont, but I mean, I did talk to him.
Yeah, I would agree with what you're saying, and I totally support that. You got people that, these country people, just like you said, they may not have the world's greatest education, but they're not dumb.
They know the fauna,
creatures.
They know the animals out there.
Yeah, and they'll be able to tell you if they see, depending on, of course, location dependent and what the local fauna is, they'll be able to tell you what they've seen and be able to differentiate it from a human being.
Yeah.
So I don't doubt you, but this story brings just a whole new
Creepiness,
creepy
dude.
factor, a new angle into this, because the thread with that friend of yours from Taylor that saw the cat person when they were driving down that dirt road. You know, here's a second instant where we've had someone talk about cat people, for lack of better words.
He was saying too that his father-in-law, of course, you know, folks, when I talk about stuff, I always try to be as practical as possible. And I know it sounds kind of silly coming from the paranormal. You're trying to be practical, but I am trying to be practical, and I try to look at it from like every angle. Okay. But I think because he said that my father-in-law was a very evil man, as in he's deceased now,
Mm-hmm.
but he said he was a very, very wicked and evil man. Okay. Now this could be, and I'm not saying that he's lying, and, you know, believe me, not calling you a liar, buddy. All I'm saying is we have a tendency to like, okay, you don't like this person, they don't like you, to make them be evil or make them be really, really bad or something. But it sounds like to me that the guy did do something, had something to do with this. And he said that on his deathbed, he was yelling and grabbing his daughter, saying, "Don't let him take me! Don't let him take me! They're going to take my soul." You know, and who knows what he was into.
That's true, and it's hard to tell. And kind of like they say, you know, the whole thing about you get down in those, kind of like the better example I can talk about is up in the deep dark hills of eastern Kentucky. You got those old, you know, or any other place in the United States like that, where they're in the backwoods, and you've got communities back there, and you got a lot of old women and old men that, you know, that they know these old ways and these things that they can do, you know, old healing methods, et cetera, those kind of things. You know, you get people that still do that.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to tell. I agree with you. It would be hard to tell what he was actually into.
But here's the thread that connects. In that same area, in a town called Orange.
Yes, not too far
ain't
from
too
there.
far from there.
Maybe 10, 15 minutes at the most.
I got a story that I went back into my archives and I looked and I found it. Now, there was a story, very brief, you know, and the only time I ever really bring up the really brief stuff is if it connects to something else. Okay. But this.
Well, we've already made one connection. If you got another one, hey, let's put it together.
Well, this is weird because Orange isn't far from Beaumont, folks.
No, it isn't.
It's in that whole corridor going toward Louisiana. In fact,
right along I-10.
That part of Texas is practically Louisiana itself.
Yeah, it's you could say it's sort of disputed territory.
It's a no man's land of it, you know, because you got
French influence in there, you got Texas influence on, and that's on both sides of the Sabine River.
Well, you know, they call the Louisianans coon ass.
Yeah. Well, actually, the Cajuns.
Yeah, the coon ass, but I'm a coon ass. They talk like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then you know, but then they're the East Texans. There's some of them that they live in Louisiana, you know, and they say
kind of like living in a border town.
Are you a coon ass? Are you a coon ass from Texas?
Yeah,
that's what they will say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like living on the border.
Yeah, you're living on the border, so you're kind of Louisianan, Texan, kind of mixed together.
Yeah.
A very weird area too, and it's got some
heavily wooded,
dark energy to it too. Yeah. That lake near into Lake Charles is, I don't like it at all. I feel
there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on. But just to give you a quick little tidbit in that area, and there's a gentleman out there. His name is James Fruget. He posted some pictures. Showed them to Brent and Sawin, and in the area that he got these pictures, he had heads, and this is kind of in a different direction, but still applies to the weirdness. When they blew the pictures up, you could see heads, you know, stuck on tree branches.
Oh, I saw that with the like it looked like Bigfoot heads.
Yeah,
and they think that the dog man was killing them.
Exactly. They think you know that again. It's just the weirdness out in that area, East Texas. It's deep. It's dark.
Yeah, I saw that. Well, here, let me get back to this black cat. Guy in Orange, Texas, was walking outside one morning, and a black panther was standing on two legs, looking into the back of his truck, his work truck.
Okay, it wasn't doing what. Okay, I guess let me see if I can phrase this correctly, folks.
Like he walked out, it was dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn was breaking, whatever.
Right, but the way
he was bleary-eyed, walking out to his truck. He's a plumber by trade,
mm-hmm.
getting started early in the morning to help build, you know,
mm-hmm.
and saw a black panther on 2 legs looking into the back of his truck. It looked at him, jumped down on all fours, and ran off into the woods.
But it wasn't.
It was a one-off,
right.
one-time thing, never happened again. That was in 1986, according to him.
Wow. So when it was standing, it wasn't quote unquote something like you could imagine a mountain lion, jumping up and putting its
He
front
said it
paws
was
on the
standing
tail.
up like a man.
Oh wow. So this is
That's all he could tell me.
There it is. I mean,
And they had a really long tail. Now, I don't, what is that?
that's strange.
That was one of those that I'd filed away until this guy gave me this story, several months back about the black cat, thing,
But it's
whatever.
all in that area, yeah. I mean, and then going back to,
and we never got to cover it because we're a lot of the potluck stuff is just stuff that we didn't get to finish from
exactly,
other stories.
And it involves a lot of tying threads together.
Mm-hmm.
And folks, that's just part of the potluck is finding the threads in these same type of stories. Unfortunately, in some of these instances, we're not able to go to the actual area where that it happened, which I think I would go there, but I'd definitely be creeped out. A upright walking cat type person.
I have no idea, dude.
That's that one. Like I said, I leave it.
I don't know how scary it is because I don't know. The guy who told me the one in Beaumont said that it was at least 7 foot tall every time he saw it stand up. The guy that saw the one in Orange said that it was around 6.5 foot, if he had to estimate.
Right.
So it's around the same height, and it's not close. They're not far from each other.
No, that's a hop, skip, and a jump when you think in the when you just think about panthers in general or big cats in general. The range going from Beaumont to Orange is not very far.
Not very far.
And you think of the range of a mountain lion, and it's too easy to.
And I got Bigfoot stories from out there too, but we're not going to get into those today. We're going to do a Bigfoot show coming up. So
definitely.
Yeah. So that was weird, and then you got there's where do you want to go next?
Shucks. Well, that one just still creeps me out because of the whole. You just tied another one that I wasn't expecting. This this gentleman sees this upright standing creature behind his truck one morning. That one caught me off guard. But anyways, gosh, I don't know. I know I heard you. Before we got the show started, you mentioned about a creature that was seen running into the water on all fours down around Port Aransas. Yeah, that's.
Now my buddy Starscream came down for my birthday, and me and him got to talking, and he told me a story about something, and I can't remember what part of the beach. Scream if you're listening to the show, get in touch with me and let me know exactly where it was at. I think he said he was down in Galveston, or maybe it was Padre. We got so many beaches here.
Yeah.
But he was in one of the beach areas, and he saw something, in the darkness, run into the water and just take off into the water, and it didn't come back out.
Into the Gulf.
Yeah, it ran into the water and didn't come back out. Now, when he said that, I immediately was like, whoa, really? Because I have another story about that. There was a guy that was camping out in Port Aransas.
Right.
And we like to go to Port Aransas. We go every summer. We haven't gone this year because flesh-eating bacteria.
Yeah.
I think it's called Vulnificus vulgaris or something like that.
Right.
I forgot the way to pronounce it or whatever, but folks, don't eat oysters, okay? The pollution, and the oysters are bottom feeders, and if you eat them, you have a very good chance of swallowing and ingesting flesh-eating bacteria, which will eat from the inside out. If you go into the ocean with an abrasion or cut right now, the way things are in the Gulf, you may end up with flesh-eating bacteria. We had a guy in Buda, right outside of Austin, lost his leg recently.
Because of all that.
Yeah. So this year, we haven't really gone this year, but a bunch of my other friends have gone, and they're like, yeah, we're fine. But you might not be. Something might happen. So I've just been, better to be safe than sorry. I'd rather just go to the lake and not, deal with that. But that, and I don't really like to get in the water too much because there's these things called sharks.
Mm-hmm. Amongst other unknown creatures.
Who knows what else might be in the water.
Yeah.
But speaking of which, this guy, he goes camping out there in Port Aransas. It's a really nice beach, folks. You can actually drive up onto the beach, and you can go and camp along the beach. It's really nice. We did it last year. It was really cool. You can drive up and down that beach all night long. It's a huge, long beach, and it's even when there's a lot of people there, there's still room for everybody because there's so much,
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyways, this guy went out there one summer, went camping out there, had a little dog with him, and in the middle of the night they hear a and something runs. He could see this large black thing on all fours run into the water, and they never saw their dog again. Now, this is weird because I asked him. The only thing I could think of that would waddle back and forth on four legs is a turtle
Mm-hmm.
or a seal, and he was very adamant that it was not that. He said that it moved dog-like.
Correct.
And in the dark, even in the darkness, he could see that it was like he didn't see flippers or whatever, but that it had maybe oversized feet, but that they were forward.
Mm-hmm.
You know how seals, and I did some research and I looked at how they walk and everything.
Pinnipeds, yeah.
Pinnipeds move in a different way, and he was adamant it wasn't a sea lion or a leopard seal or anything that might have just. I mean, it's a big ocean, and who knows? There might be some pinniped that got off course or something and ended up in Port Aransas. I don't know of any that live around Port Aransas, but
I would think it's too
stranger things have happened. I mean,
I would think the water would be too warm.
Not necessarily. I don't know. It just depends. I mean, depends on what time of year you go too.
Yeah.
But this was in the summer.
Mhm.
And actually, I think he said it was September. So, anyways, something snatched the dog, and then it was gone into the water. His girlfriend, they both had heard it. They sat up. They were sleeping in the back of a truck.
Right.
Saw this thing going into the water, and they assumed that it grabbed their dog, that the dog had a tendency of jumping off the tailgate, using the bathroom, and then would come back, and then maybe it was there, and it grabbed it.
Oh, wow.
And so what moves around on all fours and moves in and out of the water with that much freedom? I don't know.
And the speed.
Yeah, he said it was very, very fast. And then it was into the water, and they shined the light. They turned, and they drove the truck up and down, up and down. They didn't see anything come back out.
Did they check to find any tracks or anything like that?
Yeah, and that was another thing too. Like, they went and looked, for the tracks, but they were camped pretty close to the water.
Right.
So there wasn't a lot of tracks to follow.
Right.
And it just looked like impressions in the sand.
Right. And then, of course, tide also coming in and out. So
there's not a lot of,
But that's really
But
strange,
he warned me,
man.
he's like, if you go down there and you got your dog,
Keep them close.
be careful and don't sleep too close to the water. Because whatever it was came out of the water and took the dog. And that's what I'm thinking. Now, Tony, I know that one year, Tony's not in the studio right now, but he was here earlier. I know that his stepdad, Chad, years ago, they had a little Chihuahua that they took with them to Port Aransas. And they went to sleep one night and it just disappeared. So that was weird, and they never did find it. I forgot his name. He was a cute little dog, and I remember playing with him, and when they came back from that trip, they were kind of bummed out that he had disappeared.
It makes you wonder. Because from what I know, here in Texas, we don't have any predators that live, habitate close to the ocean.
No, not at all.
But the only thing I could think of that would want to come near that would be coyotes. But they're not the silent type.
Coyotes don't really hang out near.
No, I'm just saying, even if they had to come close, that would be the only ones, and then they're usually not quiet. They get the whole yipping thing going on if you get more than one. But the factor that, like you said,
what could come out of the ocean and walk very, very fast on all fours
fluidly,
yeah, grab something and then run back into the ocean without being. That's scary to me because there have been people that have gone missing on the beaches, like down in Padre and in Port Aransas and stuff.
That's true.
They go and they sleep, and then the next day they find their tent, but they don't find them, and then they never find a body. Because if something happens in the ocean, I mean, there's a good chance that the ocean, it'll take it out with the tide, but it could go back.
Mm-hmm.
But then they never find anything, and then those people just go missing, It hasn't happened a whole lot. I know we could do a whole show on Port Aransas on just all the weird stuff. There's a ghost child that people see.
Definitely.
But anyway, that encounter is really odd. We're almost out of time. But that was just really weird.
Well, if anyone else has any type of weird encounters, in that particular genre, what we're
That
talking
vicinity.
about, please, send it in to us.
Well, didn't Chief tell us one about Matagorda Bay or something like that? It was the Cadejo or something?
No, he was talking about the gentleman that saw that dog man out there on the beach.
Oh, okay.
And of course,
I can't keep up with them all.
There's so many, but the only thing we can walk away with from this is that this dogman creature and or the Cadejo, it's been around. It's been here in Texas for a lot longer than what people think. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sal. Wolf
And
over
I'm
there with.
Wolf.
Hey, and we're happy that we've been with you here.
We've been having a
and
good
you've been
time.
with
We've
us.
been telling stories. Send us your stories and anything that you want to, and I'll try to talk to you if I can. I'll call you.
Definitely.
I know there's people waiting for me to call them, and I am so
Same
backed
here.
up, and I have had some health problems like blood
we
pressure
both have
coming
had
back.
some. We both had some health
Yeah.
problems.
So we're trying to get to everybody, trying to get to everything. We're having some problems with some of the different groups we're in. They don't want to let us post our show or whatever.
We're kind of open. If you let us post on your page,
post on
you can
ours
post on ours all you want.
The groups are. We're sharing.
We're just sharing.
I don't know why we can't all just get along.
Yeah. Can't we all just get along?
Can't we just get along? But So, anyways,
let's leave them the email, and
if you have a ghost in your house, you have aliens coming to your house.
Weird creatures in your yard.
We want to know about it, yeah. Or
definitely
creepy mother-in-law that looks like de Llorona.
Yeah. Whatever it is, we want
whatever you got, let us know.
Yes, and send it to wolfandsal@gmail.com or daswolfman88@gmail.com
or private message me. Old Sal doesn't really like the private messages, do you? But
I'm sorry, folks. I'm not a big Facebooker. But if you do send them direct message, I will get to them. I will get to them.
So if you Facebook me, you can get on Facebook with me, and you can private message me. People do it all the time.
And you can find me, Old Sal.
Got a lot of friends that private message me all the time. Send me stuff. Send me little funny things, whatever. I'm cool. Whatever you got, dude. I know John Bankhead, one of my friends on Facebook. He's always sending me funny stuff.
Oh yeah. But that's good stuff. And another shout out to Miss Emily, I think, from around the Waxahachie area. Get a lot of messages from her because she says there's a lot of weird stuff goes on around there. I'm going to have to investigate that a little bit.
I ate at the El Phoenix there the other day.
Hey,
El Phoenix restaurant. Wasn't it good, Anthony?
Oh yeah.
And
there's another little hole in the wall restaurant down there. I've got to get the name from my cousin.
Oh, you don't even have the name? Thanks, dude. Thanks
no, because I know
there's
where
another
to go.
good place there. Well, see ya.
I know how to get to it. That's about it.
Hey, I had a good donut the other day. Yeah, it was awesome.
No, I haven't had a donut.
Where was it from? No idea.
But it was good.
It was good. Just thought I'd tell you. You're missing out. See ya.
But with that being said, folks, thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.